Okay, so we're gonna call the April 27th, 28th. What's the date, 28th, right? 24th, thank you. 24th meeting of, jumping ahead
Okay,
of
we got
myself.
about 7 dates going here.
Yeah, that's right. Sometime in April, we're having a Lake Quinsigamond Commission meeting, and it's tonight. So, thank you all for coming. Meeting minutes from the March 2019 meeting. Did everyone have a chance to peruse through those, and any questions, comments?
I'm pretty happy with the minutes, Mr.
Make a
Chairman.
motion, Mr. Chairman, we accept the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So voted. Okay, and review and approval of bills and expenses. Our trustee treasurer is not here.
But the report is sitting at his seat over there.
Should I get it?
Someone wants to grab it.
All right. This is it right here?
Yep.
It's a big one. Okay. If I knew I was gonna have to do this part of it, I would have worn that fake white mustache. All right, so, all we have is, expenses, we have $163 and $42.50 for a total of $205.50 for postage, for dock permits. So that's it, this round. Any questions or comments on the treasurer's report?
Motion to accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? Staying, okay, so voted. Move right on to commissioners' reports. The lake, I guess, is back in business, so it's been warm, the weather's been good, the boats are getting in, the docks are getting in. You know, all the groups are out, looks like, on the lake, and the water is very high, unusually high for this time of year, actually, so it's cranking over the dam at over, it was 150-something cubic feet per second the last time I looked at it, so it's trying to get back down to normal, but we keep getting events. We're gonna have another couple of days this weekend, so I expect it's still gonna stay pretty high. For anyone out there that you know, has to be concerned with that, with your docks or whatever you have in the water, so just keep an eye on that, because it's not going down. And we've had a couple requests to lower the dam. Two things I just want to bring up about that while I have everyone's attention is that we're under permit with the dam, so we can lower the dam down for when we do our drawdowns and things like that, but we don't have, unless there's some type of big emergency, but we don't really have the power to just go away. You gotta bring the dam up and down or whatever we want to do. So that's something that we really can't do unless we have a permit to do it. That's number one. Number two, the reason that we can't do that is because there's people downstream that probably don't want the high water any more than we do. So we don't want to give them any more high water than they already have, because everyone has the same issues. Hubby Pond, for example, the Quinsigamond River, Lake Ripple, right down into the Blackstone. So that's the real reason that the DEP really, keeps a tight rein on all of the dams that they control, so that we don't, mess up the ecology and people's property. So that's that goes from that. I think for now that's all I have. Mr. Pica.
A few things, Mr. Chairman. Number one, it appears that the eagles may have, in fact, hatched their eggs. I've been driving by my boat, and I noticed both the parents were in the nest, looking down into the nest. It would appear that seeing that maybe doting over recently hatched young. It's very possible. Number two, it's nice to see that the abandoned dock that was on the shore at the base of the island where the eagle's nest is gone. I don't know if anybody's here tonight that got rid of it, but I'm glad to see that somebody took it away. So some trash in the lake that was needed to be gone, and so that was good to see removed. Number two, Mr. Chair, Mike Perna is finishing another book on Shrewsbury Then and Now with a number of Lake Quinsigamond contrasting photos. It's going to be out this fall, so for anybody so interested and has enjoyed those books of his on the lake in Shrewsbury in the past, that's something to look forward to. In terms of the lake being high, it is high. For those people who got their boats in, you might check your lines, make sure, if your dock's fixed, your lines can pull out from your boat. If you have sections of a dock that drop into a frame, hopefully you tied them down because the water could get so high that those sections could float up, off, and out and away. So keep that in mind. The lake is becoming busier. And then one other item, Mr. Chair, a couple weeks ago there was a group, a cleanup Worcester group that did a very nice job cleaning up the Coal Mine Brook and Brownie Beach area. They really did do a great job. There are areas of the lake that get annually a lot of use, and unfortunately a significant amount of trash is generated, and it was nice to see that annually is done, as well as Oak Island off of Route 20. I know there was a cleanup there. It was wonderful to see the volunteer effort in terms of people stepping up and showing some stewardship in terms of keeping our lake. It's not your lake, it's our lake clean. And that was a great thing to see, Mr. Chair. And for now, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. One thing I want to flesh out a little bit, the dock at Drake Island, actually, it's my belief that nature took it. And it's, if anyone should see this dock out there,
You mean
with a little 10
high
by,
water in the rain?
yeah, a little 10 by
Lift it up.
5 floating around
Oh, boy.
with it. Because we had some reports out that someone had saw it, floating around out in the middle. So be very careful, because I don't know if the barrels are still with it or not.
It was on barrels.
Yeah, it was on barrels, so if the barrels did get away from it, that means the dock could be
Submerged at lake
submerged.
level.
If it does come up to your property, please notify, just email the Lake Commission, and we'll take steps to take care of it. If you want to be do a good deed, then take it up and get rid of it. But there is no plate on it. There was a place that a plate was on it, but obviously someone had taken the plate off. So, but if it's on there, the right thing to do would be, please, take care of it and get rid of the thing. If you can't do that for some reason, then please email us, and we'll take steps to take care of it. So thank you for that. I guess you're up.
All right.
You take Sharon's spot.
All right, so the Shrewsbury Police has to report that our boat is in the water along with environmental boat. Patrols will begin Memorial Day weekend. Also, Mass DOT has put up the new safety and speed signs on the Burns Bridge. Safety buoys will be going in the water end of this week and the beginning of next week. And just a reminder that all dock registration should be completed by May 31st. That's the end of the report.
Cool. Good info. So the boat's in, running good and all that, and
Yeah, thanks so far.
so knock on wood. Is the EPO boat gonna be in the Shrewsbury Boathouse this year? Or?
It is, it's already in there.
It's already in? So basically we have two law enforcement boats sitting in the,
Correct.
sitting like, do they take that in and out, or they just leave it in?
They
there?
usually leave it,
Unless they need it for something else?
yes,
All right. Great. Are you on the boat this year?
yes.
Perfect. So, and Worcester, I saw Worcester's boat driving down, well, it wasn't just a boat, it was on a trailer being pulled by a vehicle, but is that in the lake yet?
It was supposed to be, and I haven't actually verified that it is.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that if all went well,
Well, it looked good on the trailer, so. Hope it worked. You guys know if the boat's in the boathouse down there? No, you
No,
don't.
we're not like Shrewsbury, we don't advertise if that boat's in or out, you can't tell.
It's sneaky.
It's like the Batmobiles. You never
Shrewsbury
know.
officer done with his report?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Thank you very much. Captain Steele.
We just completed a class for police officers who are gonna be working the patrol boat. At this point in time, we're not exactly sure how we're gonna conduct our patrols, but it appears that we'll probably be on the lake maybe 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days a week, probably towards the end of the week. And I think we're looking at like 11 to 7, something like that, 12 to 8, around that time. So that we pick up the afternoon and early evening traffic. We have about 9 or 10 officers that have been trained. Hopefully we'll have 1 or 2 that are on the boat all the time, and then they'll have some other guys that fill in. Several of the officers have worked with Shrewsbury in the past, and I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna start out this year. We may spend some time with Shrewsbury, or we may just go out on our own. But did you guys have a meeting with our guys about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
I think that was Officer Valier.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, we're putting it together, but we do expect to be on the water. I will tell you that there'll be new sheriff in town, won't be cutting anyone any slack. They're gonna have to follow all the rules, or they'll be, boats confiscated, fines given, those kinds of things.
Okay.
That's what I've been told. No, I'm kidding, it'll be typical police patrols.
Well, it's great to hear that the city's.
That's my report.
Yeah, they're great.
It is great. Do you know does anyone know if Worcester's boat can get underneath Sunset Beach, underneath the Stringer Dam?
Years ago we could, but I'm not sure about it nowadays.
There's no canopy, right? It should.
Yeah, should just shoot right under. They used to have contests how fast you could go under. No.
I remember. I was a judge.
We used to have young cops run that thing. I go, older guys could be on it this year.
That's good. The reason I ask is that that's an unpatrolled end of the lake over there sometimes, unless the jet skis are out. These guys have it. I remember one year, someone gave me a jet ski. I don't know if it was EPO or what.
We're gonna have a jet ski on the lake.
Oh, are you?
It's gonna be the fire department's jet ski. But we're gonna be utilizing that, especially if the dive team has to go out and we're using the patrol boat as a platform.
Yeah.
We'll be using the jet ski, but
Okay.
we're also gonna be training on the jet ski, so that means we'll be out in the water with
Okay,
it too.
that's good. I think the jet ski's gonna be like a rescue thing, or what?
It'll be law enforcement will be using it
Okay.
if it happens, because what happens, when the dive team comes out, everyone gets curious.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And they
yeah.
come over, and it's dangerous for the divers,
Yeah.
so they need someone to keep the boats away,
Right.
so that's
Yeah,
what,
second you turn the blue lights on.
yeah. Well, as soon as.
I always go the
divers
other
start
way
going over the
usually,
side.
but, some people like to go toward the light.
Yeah,
So, all right, that's it?
that's my report.
Thank you. Mr. Polito is not here. Mr. Conway?
I can't compete with that, so.
No.
No report.
Can't threaten anybody, or
No.
give us any good news? No?
Nothing.
Awesome, all right.
So I don't have a report from the city, but I do have an email that I received from a woman who was interested in a property somewhere on the lake, and she wanted to know kind of some characteristics of the lake. So I directed her to our websites.
Yeah,
And I went on the websites today, and I was noticing that some of the things that I thought would be there actually weren't there, such as that some of the reports that we've received from Solitude Lake Management or other environmental reports that we've received over the last couple of years.
okay.
And I think that it would be nice if we could post those on the website.
Is that,
We can work on that.
is that doable? All right, yeah, we'll work on that. It's not a bad idea, for anyone who's interested in doing it. In the meantime, if it's not on there, you can reach out, and we'll be happy to send you whatever we have that's available that you want.
If I could ask, what kind of things, Amanda?
So we had that study that showed the entire length of the map, and it mapped mapped out some of the invasive species, and it mapped out some of the other environmental concerns across the lake. And she was interested in specifics for a particular property, and I said, look at that property in the context of that report, and if she can't find that report, she really can't do that.
Right, so the question she asked, I responded to her. She didn't, was that?
She didn't respond back to me either.
Okay, so I'm familiar with the property she wanted to look at and what the characteristics of it were, and it was detailed and, you know, what it was good for and not good for. So, she had a couple of questions about building docks and stuff, which I referred to the website, which there is information on putting a new dock. And I think the dock that was in front of the house was under the water or something. So,
She was also interested in whether the lake was a sandy bottom or a mucky bottom.
yeah, not there. Not anymore. So, if you don't like muck, that wasn't the house for you.
So if you're gonna buy property, and you happen to be looking at a property where the bottom was sandy and became mucky,
Yep.
are there recourses for people to
Well, you know, we're
change it back to
trying,
sandy?
we're trying desperately, well, I don't, that's a good question for the Conservation Commission. Can you dump sand into the lake? That's one of the things she asked about. My understanding is no, you can't do that.
I think that would take an Army Corps of Engineers permit.
Yep, so if you want to do any fill or any dredging.
Off the sand, that's the-
So, you know, this, I can say this, that underneath the gravel, you could dump, and the other thing is, you could dump sand in front of that house, what she was talking about. I don't want to get off on a tangent with this particular property, but you could dump sand in that house. You could put
leaves.
100 yards of sand in there.
It's not gonna make a difference.
Nope, not anymore. And it's just gonna take, what happens is that whatever current, or where the current's going, you know, her neighbor's gonna end up with the sand, whatever doesn't get filtered out through the muck. So that's basically what she is right there. There's probably, I'm gonna say a good 2.5, 3 feet of muck right in front of that house, right off the shore. Underneath that, if you ever got to that part, is gravel. Because the indigenous bottom of Lake Quinsigamond is basically just a gravelly, hard terrain. It's not a bad, it'd be great if it wasn't for the muck over there. But our efforts to keep the lake clean and to keep the invasives down, that's why this is so important, because that's basically what this is a result of. That, in years of people blowing their leaves off the banking, you know, because a lot of that stuff isn't, there's nothing growing there, it's just kind of muck. So it's, you know.
And that's, Mr. Chair, if I could just add, that's a collection of eutrophication over hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and the part that, you know, where flow is slowed down and all that stuff. So a lot of the things, what we're trying to do to correct that or mitigate that with the efforts we're doing to fight the invasives and open up channels and all that stuff, that's why that's a critical thing to do. Because it's just gonna get worse if we don't do something. So I don't know if we can ever like bring it back to pristine condition, but we can slow it down. You know, a lot of things you hear from, I heard this from Natural Heritage one day, is, you know, well, you know, lakes die, you gotta get that in your head. Because I wanna do all this aggressive stuff and, you know, clean it out, you know, bring it back, and it's, you know, you have to resign yourself to that, and that's true, you know. But this particular lake has had a lot of help from man to get where it is today. So I'm just trying to take that back. All the stuff that we did, we contributed for, and kind of counteract that. So that's really what our goal is with the cleanup.
Mr. Chairman, does a gravelly bottom inhibit the growth of the invasive species?
No,
Well, that's too bad.
no, it's actually,
Is that
it's really nice soil like this.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. The muck may, I don't know, no, it doesn't really, because I got muck in front of my house and Eurasian milfoil and
I
family.
would think milfoil would love muck, but.
Yeah, it does. And Sacred Lotus, I can tell you that from experience, really likes it. So, I don't know if the Asian clams like it. Do they go under the muck? We don't know. They kind of like the sand, right? Yeah. So,
Well, that's what we can see.
I wish they ate muck, that'd be good. All right, so,
We could train them.
yeah, we could, clam trainer. You can see that resume. Okay, Mr. Semitis is not here, Mr. Nelson isn't here, so I guess we're gonna move along on that. So review and act on the following event requests. Request an application from, application, I shouldn't say request an application, request and an application from the Telegram and Gazette for the Worcester Dragon Boat Festival on December 21st, 2019, with ramp closure and practice sessions on September 19th and 20th. Are they asking to close the ramp on the practice sessions still? Okay. And I thought we had talked about this event. Everyone's, I guess we're gonna vote, we have the,
You have the application.
Oh.
Yes, we have their,
you have the money?
once it gets approved.
Okay. Oh, I see. The EPO permit signed by our chief or their chief?
That's just my note.
That's
I
just your-
already
just
have
your
that.
mic?
Yeah, they have the EPO application, so we get it signed by the Shrewsbury Police Chief.
Sorry, I didn't mean to read
It's okay.
your note. All right. So, yeah, they basically want to do this, the travel lane must be maintained like we usually do. All applicants will provide the LQC, a certificate of insurance. So all this paperwork is coming in from us. And
Mr. Chair, do we have an understanding in terms of residential butters who live in the north end of the lake, that they would be able to proceed at wake speed along the Shrewsbury side if need be, in terms of wanting to get south of the Route 9 bridge to otherwise themselves be able to enjoy the lake that particular weekend?
so under special conditions, number one, is a travel lane be maintained for boats not associated with race traveling from Route 9 bridge through to the Corzini State Ramp
Okay,
at Wake Speed.
okay. Thank you.
So yes. And which are basically in all our permits when we close that part of the lake down. And, you know, the challenge we've had is being able to, you know, keep law enforcement. Our guys are pretty good because you guys know what's going on and how to do it. I think some of the folks in EPO, especially folks that aren't familiar with Lake Quinsigamond, familiar with the events, and I don't know, it may have been you, Luke, that brought this up at one point and said, you know, these guys are sitting on the Route 9 bridge and looking down there and all they see is chaos. So they just look at it and say, it's not safe. So we gotta, you know, figure out a way to make sure that they keep that lane open. Because technically speaking, the way that the rules work, the Lake Quinsigamond rules work, that is, if a tournament, an event, cannot maintain any of the special conditions, then the event needs to be shut down until they can maintain the condition. And that's something I really want to do, but it's, you know, I don't think it's that hard. So if that means that they have to, you know, an event has to hire an extra, you know, you look at a traffic detail, and they may have, if it's a long stretch of road, or, you know, like a construction detail on the road, if it's a long stretch of road, and the officers, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you guys can't see each other, or you can't see the oncoming traffic, there's usually two officers there that direct one, so if, you know, if you're down to one lane. Is that right? So theoretically, we could do the same thing on the eastern shores, put somebody down by the boathouse or within view of that stretch, and someone at the Route 9 bridge, and make sure that everything's okay. Because I can understand why they're looking down there. It does look crazy, and you can't see the little, you know, coves on the east shore of Shrewsbury, so some stuff's invisible. So we'll work that out, but, you know, hopefully it's not going to be a problem. It didn't seem last year. I don't think we had a whole bunch of conflicts there, so it's good.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the request and application from the TNG for the Dragon Boat race.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, so voted, great. Look forward to that again. I know the Worcester, Shrewsbury gonna put a boat in, put a crew together for the Dragon Boat race?
Sure, you can find out, I'll get back to you.
Okay, Worcester's kind of,
I think Worcester Police win all the time.
yeah, just Worcester's throwing it at you.
Won every year.
Were you in on it, Roger?
He's smack talking over there.
I just think that's how it
You
works.
won last year, right?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. think
Were
we
you
won
on the
every year,
boat?
haven't
Weren't you
we?
on the boat? I thought you were there. Okay. The next one,
I'm just not liking to brag, I'm just mentioning it's like.
Thank you for that. Okay, so the next permit that we have here is a request and an application for the community rowing regatta point community sailing for New England, for the New England Junior and High School Fall Championship. And this will be on Sunday, October 13th, 2019, with a ramp closure. And on the original schedule we got, Patrick, this date was, is there a conflict with you folks, October 13th? Okay, because we had it on
This
because,
was yeah, this was originally
QRC or
a
QRA?
Shrewsbury High event.
Okay.
The QRA is involved in this.
Okay, cool. So, all right, so October 13th, same thing, we're gonna close the comments. We have the race director. So this is just the application, we don't have, we don't have the permit. And the permit will be so marked as this one is,
Yeah, I have the
Yep.
permit and the check.
with the same special conditions and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, so October 13th,
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we accept the request and application for the New England Junior High School Fall Championship on Sunday, October 13th.
second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, so voted. Thank you. You guys, this is for community sailing now, this is your,
Yes, we just recently bought out the Lake Quinsigamond Community Routing,
yeah,
run by Rich Starbucks.
yeah,
So the sailing club has now absorbed that into our organization. So this is the first year we're running it. So we'll have Rich Starbucks's knowledge and institutional knowledge, and he'll be the race director, but we'll be the official people running it.
okay. Wow, that's expanding. Pretty soon there'll be like regatta hotels and stuff.
We're hoping, and the
Casinos.
casino.
Huh?
You'll be a
They have a casino,
significant
that's right.
presence on the
You'll
lake.
have to talk to the nipmunks. Huh?
We're actually moving to become more of community boating, not just focusing on sailing, with the idea of being open for all sports to everyone. And as the new docks are coming in by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, we're gonna make a push to be adaptive as well. So we'll be adaptive sailing, adaptive rowing, adaptive kayaking.
Nice.
Community with a big focus. So,
Because the floating system you have there, that is adaptive, right? 'Cause
Right.
you have the noise strip on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
what we don't have are the piers are not ready
Yeah, the
yet,
pier's
and
not
the
ready.
ramps.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's starting this November 1, I wanna say.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, that's just a design thing. That should be pretty simple to do, because it's all gonna be a part anyway.
Right.
Yeah, great.
So,
That's exciting,
yeah.
it really is. The rest of the facility, that's accessible, right?
Yeah, so it's all one floor.
Yeah, right.
There's only
Okay.
one office
Yeah.
upstairs, so.
Yeah, that'd be something. It's a great place, you guys are doing a great job, plus you're moving out to other ponds and stuff, right? You're still gonna do Coes and
Chauncey.
Chauncey?
Yep.
Yeah,
We're trying to figure out codes right now. It's a funding issue. We just gotta figure out how we fundraise for it appropriately. We took a pretty big loss last year there,
yeah,
but we wanna do it, which is coming up with the right funding system.
are you getting any help from the city?
So they provide the property at no expense,
Yeah.
but we've reached out a little bit to the city and we're trying to work with them through the mayor's office and a few of the selectmen. So.
All right. Good luck. Perfect. Okay. Review and act on, a possible act on the report of the subcommittee for the rules review and proposed changes and clarification. So each of you should have gotten that the additions and changes and stuff are in red. So you can kind of see that. We didn't really mess around, and this isn't, I don't think, a finished effort yet. We've still got some stuff to do. We're getting pretty close, though, I think. We're at least it's coming together where we think we need to define and tighten things up a little bit more than they have been over the years. So it's an interesting process because it's really a three-pronged effort when you think about it. You know, we have the Lake Quinsigamond rules, and that's basically the document you have in front of you. We also have, you know, the Mass General Laws, Chapter 90B, I think, right? So they play a big part in this, and a lot of the stuff we have is based on or direct, you know, verbiage from Chapter 90B. And then we have Coast Guard rules, which Lake Quinsigamond falls under because any body of water that can be used as a highway or transportation gets kind of put into the purview of the Coast Guard travel, if you could travel on it. So that's kind of how Lake Quinsigamond is on there for that. So their rules also you know, can apply, and we can use things there. It doesn't say that we can't make rules separate from that or different or modify the rules to fit our needs and our geography and things like that. Give you an example of one that we actually do that with is the speed limit. The speed limit in Massachusetts, you know, during the day and under good conditions is 45 miles an hour. On Lake Quinsigamond, it's 40 miles an hour. And that's due because of the geography, because of some of the sight lines that we have here and whatnot. So, and there's just a sheer amount of, you know, Quinsigamond really is it's a lake, but it's really more it's shaped more like a river. So you know, we have need to have, I think, a slower speed limit. So one of the changes we had down there is rule number 5, which is the speed limit we just talked about. And we didn't really change the rule too much. And you know, there's some nuance, and this is, I guess, again, law enforcement's probably got a better feel for this than I do, but in the Chapter 90B laws even, you know, it all boils down to there's certain rules that the speed limit's 45, but you know, you have to look at the conditions, and you have to look at the, you know, not just the conditions of the weather, but the conditions of, you know, the traffic and the activity around you, if there's swimmers and whatnot. So if there's a lot of things that are more nuanced, that are difficult to explain in a document like this. So, as an example, is, you know, you can't really obstruct, but by the use of the lake, you can't obstruct other people from using the lake. That's kind of a rule that they talk about in the Massachusetts General Laws. So, you know, there's a lot of different stuff. We're trying to grow up, you know, get our arms around that part of it, and try to explain that a little bit better, because that's certainly an issue that we have at Lake Quinsigamond, is just everyone, you know, trying to use the lake. So one bigger change that we had is Rule 16. Basically, all power boat, water ski competitions, snowmobile races, ice boat races, canoe races, any regatta. We basically put that onto Rule 25A, because that's what Rule 25A was talking about anyway. You know, events like a race, a regatta, a parade, exhibition, practice for a race, any of that stuff. You know, it's all the same kind of thing. So we put any kind of competition basically is under Rule 25A now. So if it's a power boat, a water ski, a snowmobile race, ice boat, whatever it is. You want to have a swimming race, you know. So you can go down there, and we have some purview over the over races, so that if say they're going to have a power boat race, and the race is, you know, they want to go faster than 40 miles an hour on the water, we can, you know, decide whether to grant them that type of permission or not. So that kind of thing. I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just saying that that's, you know, we have some room to do that kind of stuff. So but we combined that all under Rule 25 and took out of Rule 16. So and in place on Rule 16, we basically put on, some of this verbiage is from Chapter 90B, but no person shall operate a boat or vessel or vehicle at an improper distance or rate of speed that results in injury, damage, or excessive rocking of other vessels, docks, rafts, or other structures on or about Lake Quinsigamond. It shall be the operator's responsibility for any such damage caused by such operation, and you're responsible for the wake your boat makes and the damage or injury you make to a person, a person's or property. So,
I would just change that to the operator is responsible, so that you are responsible.
good, yep, I like it. Makes sense. Watch, you have to sign. Okay, rule number 20, this is defined it's defined in the Coast Guard rules, and we're going back and forth with this, and Luke had sent us all that stuff, which was good. I just think we just want to kind of flesh that out a little bit, and that's why there's no verbiage on here to change around. But that's one we have in our work. We just talked about 25A, and the only other red line we have to date is the date we approved this, and we'll all sign it with our names on it.
For Rule 20, could you do something like wind-powered versus paddle-driven? Is that what you're trying to get towards? Or
Yeah, there's a pecking
just trying
order,
to
Scott,
expense?
that you can say, okay,
Yeah.
that
Sure.
they define boats as you know, power boat, a boat on the sail, there's an oared boat, you know,
And swimmers are always last.
there's, just get out of the way.
Yes.
You know, in Quinsigamond, because it's so inviting, and I'll tell you this from a swimmer, and I've done it, and it's a bad thing, and I'll never do it again. But I used to swim across and take bets that I could, you know, I was a lifeguard, and I swam a mile a day, every day, so that, you know, I can go from Ramshorn to White City in about, you know, 7 minutes. So, or could when I was in my 20s. But anyway, so it's inviting to do that, but we have a rule on here that says you cannot be more than 50 feet from shore when you're swimming, because you're liable to get killed, you know, if you're out there. Because you cannot, you know, you can't see anyone, especially if there's any kind of chop in the water, you have a little head, you know, you're not gonna see them. You know, in a
Or it's
boat.
after dark,
Or it's after dark or anything like that, so, you know.
before sunrise.
And kids still do it, it's just a natural thing, you live in the lake, they just wanna go out and do stuff they're not supposed to do. Well, let's just go out to the island, you know, they'll go across the thing, and they won't have a boat, they'll just like dog paddle. And I've had to pull kids out in front of my house. So, so that's what we're trying to define there, to kind of go and say, okay, this boat has over this boat, you know, so we can kind of get through there. Ultimately, it's the boat with the least amount of ability to maneuver is the one you really got that gets right away. But that depends on if you're overtaking somebody, or you're beside them, or you're heading in a T-bone thing, or whatever, so we have to figure that out and work it out. So that one's just been a little bit more challenging. But that's where we are with this. Any comments or questions?
Comment, Mr. Chair, read through myself, I think we should allow for commission members as presented with this today to digest it and come back next meeting and maybe, you know, so make a determination in terms of enacting them as part of our rules.
Okay. We're gonna have, if we do any changes to these rules, what we'll probably do is, you know, we'll come back from the committee, come back to the commission, say this is what we recommend we do. Everyone is gonna have their you know, say in it and input, and then we'll take all that and we'll basically schedule a hearing, because this all has to go through a hearing, and then this whole process is gonna go to the state. And I don't know if you guys remember the last time we changed the charter, but so it'll take a little bit for us to get through it, but I don't see any objections to this anywhere, because I don't see any overreach. We're not asking to do anything that's beyond state law or the Coast Guard law. You know, I'm not asking for anything in addition, like, oh, you can go 50 miles an hour on Lake Quinsigamond, or anything like that, so I think we should do it, but that's how it'll work. We'll go for approval here to have a hearing. Does that make sense? And we'll get the public input at that point too. So we may have to move that to Worcester for a bigger space. We'll see.
Blackstone Visitor Center. I think they'd like us to use that if we can.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
That's a great place.
no, they would like us to do things.
Yeah, the way we
like
wrote it is that we, I think it's in here. We can do it anywhere in Shrewsbury, Worcester, or Grafton.
that. No, they'd be very happy to host the Lake Commission at Visitor Center.
All right?
You got an office away from our office down there, don't you?
Next item, Mr. Chair.
Okay, next item is update from Jacqueline. What everybody's been waiting for.
So I'm having some technical difficulties with the projector, it doesn't seem to be focusing. I don't know,
Anybody have a,
if there's any people in the room that might be able to assist in this. If I go back too much further, it's gonna be on
I thought I
the
need to put my glasses on.
ceiling. Oh, okay. Long people close it.
Turn the light off or something, see a little better.
Oh, it's your pen? Where's my pen?
That's it.
It's fine.
Unplug it back in.
That's the old reboot.
Got some of the lights off.
Smack it
Please.
upside the head.
Good evening, my name is Jacqueline Burmeister. I'm from the City of Worcester Department of Public Works and Parks, the Lakes and Ponds program. I usually give an update about what we have going on at Lake Quinsigamond. This evening, I thought I could present to you some of the findings from our State of the Lakes that we had back on March 7th at the Blackstone Visitor Center. So the program that I run over in Worcester, we do lake monitoring as part of our management program. So we go out, we probably went out to Lake Quinsigamond about 12 to 14 times last year, gathered a lot of samples and used those to assess the state of the lake and kind of inform our management decisions there. So we presented those at the State of the Lakes last month, and I just thought this would be a great opportunity to share those results with people who might not have had a chance to get there. So they'll just be the Lake Quinsigamond results. I work with 3 other lakes out in Worcester as well. So yeah, I guess I'll jump right in. I apologize for the blurriness, but hopefully we'll be able to get through it. So the City of Worcester Lakes and Ponds program has 4 components. We monitor, we manage, we educate, and we promote. I explained our monitoring program. I go out in the boat, collect water samples from the middle of the lake and also from the major tributaries. With that information, we contract people to do lake management for weed removal, a lot of the stuff that you do here at the commission in the lakes and ponds in Worcester. We have educational programs on invasive aquatic plants, cyanobacteria, and we also spend a lot of time promoting our waterways as places to recreate. So we know that in Worcester, we have a few urban water quality threats that we're concerned about as interfering with the recreational value of these resources, our blue spaces we call them. They include litter, invasive plants and animals, bacteria, including both fecal bacteria and cyanobacteria, nutrients, nutrient loading, phosphorus and nitrogen, industrial contamination. We are a post-industrial city. and then sediments and turbidity. And I'll talk a little bit more about how each of those things are affecting specifically Lake Quinsigamond. So we use those threats that we've identified to inform our monitoring program. We choose parameters that we're measuring based on what we know to be challenges for the lakes. And then we go out and we sample. Once we get the results to understand how each of those results measure up to a standard, we use a special analysis called the SMART analysis. It's developed by DEP. It assigns color codes to ranges of the results based on how we're doing. So you'll see in the graphs throughout this presentation, if the data points fall into the red, that's a poor value. Into the orange, that's a fair value. Into the green, that's a good value. And into the blue, that's the excellent. So that's just kind of a guide for us to understand how we're doing for each parameter. So the results to all of this, I'm only gonna go over some very brief results tonight, the most important ones for you. But we do create reports every year that go into detail about what these challenges are, the different parameters that we study and why they're important. We create a report specifically for each lake. We mentioned it last month at the commission. It's a pretty lengthy report. I have it fresh off the printer today for Lake Quinsigamond, and I have copies for the commissioners and I think a few extra for people in the public. We will also be putting these on the City of Worcester Recreational Waters, the Blue Space webpage. That's under the DPW tab of the City of Worcester website. So I wanted to hand these out to you all, give you your copies, and
Thanks.
so those will be available online soon. And we'll go into more detail about all the things I'm about to mention now. So for the purposes of that conference, for the presentation at the Blackstone Visitor Center, I talked a little bit about the characteristics of Lake Quinsigamond that are significant when it comes to lake management and sampling. And that's the fact that, as you know here in the commission, we're bordered by 3 communities. We have Worcester, Shrewsbury, and Grafton, which create unique challenges and opportunities for the management of the lake. It's so large, it has a lot of different uses, which creates a lot of recreational value, but also, again, management challenges as different stakeholders are interested in seeing the lake used for different things. There are quite a few, I'm so sorry, you can't even read this. There are a lot of attractions on Lake Quinsigamond, including 2 state-run beaches. We have a public boat launch. It's stocked with trout twice annually. We have rowing and sailing clubs, and just there's so much going on all the time. However, we have known for a little while that it has some water quality impairments, including Enterococcus bacteria. This is a fecal bacteria indicator that's used by the state to test the beaches. The state mandates that we test swimming beaches once a week during the swimming season, and if we don't meet a certain threshold for bacteria levels, we need to close the beach until we do. We also know that Lake Quinsigamond, because of the Commission's dedication to monitoring it, that there are some non-invasive aquatic plants that are crowding out local vegetation, causing sedimentation, and also disrupting recreational value of the lake. We know that there's low dissolved oxygen challenges resulting from the depth of the lake, and I'll talk more about those dynamics in a moment. And then we also have sightings of an invasive mollusk, the Asian clam. There is some work being done on these challenges already. The Lake Commission has been very proactive about raising money to treat some of the weeds. There's also a drawdown that happens every year. There's so we do have some progress being made on these challenges already. So my program started in 2017, and we confirmed that all of these challenges do still exist. And we're kind of starting to track how our management is impacting these challenges and tracking our progress. So what did we find when we went out there? One of the most clear indicators of water quality in a lake or pond is clarity. So clarity is how far down you can see into the lake. So we measure that with what's called a Secchi disc. It's a black and white disc that we lower into the water. And the further down that we can see that disc before it disappears, the more clear that the water is, and supposedly the healthier it is. Here at Lake Quinsigamond, Secchi clarity is quite high. In fact, you can't really see any of the axes here, but you can see these dots fall within the green and the blue for most of the summer, or for most of the season. So we have a pretty good clarity in Lake Quinsigamond that you don't actually find in a lot of other smaller, shallower lakes and ponds. In Worcester, there's only one other lake that has as high or higher clarity than Lake Quinsigamond. But to really understand some of the challenges that Lake Quinsigamond faces a little bit below where that clarity ends, you need to understand a little bit about the dynamics of a deeper lake. So in shallower lakes, the temperature of the water column is pretty uniform throughout the water column. So the temperature on the top of the water and the bottom of the lake are maybe a couple degrees different, but as we know in Lake Quinsigamond, it's so deep that it gets fairly cool at the bottom, and during the summer months especially, the water on the top is warming up a lot more than the water on the bottom. And so if in the spring everything is pretty uniform, by the time summer comes you have this layer of warm water that's floating on top of the cooler water below. And we know that warmer water is more buoyant. So it almost creates this kind of thermal barrier in the lake that prevents mixing inside of the lake, mixing of oxygen down to the lower depths of the lake. And this has implications for wildlife and nutrient cycling in the lake that we need to consider when we're doing our management. So we see this thermal stratification happening throughout the summer, or throughout the season that we're out there sampling. This is in late April. The temperature in the green here is the temperature on the surface of the lake, and then in the blue here is the temperature at the bottom of the lake. So we measure both points, and we see that in the beginning of the season, the temperature is relatively close. And as the season goes on, the temperature on the bottom stays pretty similar, but the temperature on the surface of the lake increases. And there are very that stratification increases. It peaks midsummer, and then you see that the difference between the top and the bottom of the water column becomes less severe by the end of November. So what does that mean as far as oxygen? We talked about the mixing that occurs. And of course the oxygen is occurring mostly in the upper portions where the plants are respiring and creating oxygen for the water column. We see, so this is dissolved oxygen in the water, which of course is important to fish. We see in the beginning of the season, this is again end of April, oxygen at the surface and at the bottom of Lake Quinsigamond is about the same level. As time goes on, the oxygen at the top of Lake Quinsigamond continues to stay in the blue category, excellent. So we have a lot of oxygen in the top portion, but throughout the summer, the oxygen at the bottom of Lake Quinsigamond decreases until we have what's called anoxia. Anoxia is a complete devoid of oxygen. So that means that fish are not able to breathe in this portion of the lake. So this measurement is happening 2 feet from the bottom of Lake Quinsigamond. So it's happening pretty far down. We're talking about 75, 80 feet down. So we don't necessarily expect fish to be hanging out there, but what we don't understand based on this graph is how severe that drop-off is in oxygen. At what point in the water column is the oxygen becoming so low that fish can no longer survive? And that's important implication, has important implications for our fishing and for all of our other wildlife. So what we ended up doing this summer, which we didn't do last summer, was we took what's called temperature and oxygen profiles. We took that probe that I used to measure temperature and oxygen, and we lowered it throughout the water column, and we measured temperature and oxygen every 4 feet all the way to the bottom of the lake. And we did that once a month for 6 months. And so these graphs, you can't see much, but you can see what's important. You see the lines. So this line represents temperature, the red line on each graph, and this line represents the dissolved oxygen. And these are the different months, April, May, June. So in the beginning of the season, again, when it's cool, we see that temperature is uniform from the surface all the way down to the bottom of the lake. We also see, again, that dissolved oxygen is uniform from the top of the lake all the way down to the bottom of the lake. However, as the season warms up, we see that in May, there is a drop-off in temperature. The water is warm at the top of the surface of the water, and then it begins to plummet as you go down. We also see oxygen. There's a lot of oxygen in the at the upper portions, and then slowly, 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 it begins to drop off as you go deeper. It's still okay. Above this level here, the fish are doing all right. But as the summer goes on, we see that this curve for oxygen, as the temperature curve becomes more extreme, the oxygen curve becomes more extreme. Until we're in September here, and we're seeing a plummet in the oxygen levels starting around 25 feet deep. The water becomes devoid of oxygen, and so that means that the fish are going to have a lot of challenges surviving in conditions below that level. So what I should say right now is that this is a very natural process in deep lakes. This is not something that Lake Quinsigamond is experiencing that no one else has seen before. It's been documented for a long time, and we're really not even sure at this point if this is something that's exacerbated by us as humans in Lake Quinsigamond. But we do know that when this deep lake situation is a lot more sensitive to nutrient loading, and I'll tell you why that is now. In addition to aquatic organisms like fish requiring oxygen to survive and reproduce, bacteria also require oxygen. And so those bacteria are responsible for the decomposition process that transforms nitrogen, ammonia, which is the waste from fish. You know, when you have your fish tank, it starts developing ammonia in it from the fish waste. These bacteria convert it into a form that's not toxic, that nitrate that can be used by plants to absorb as like a fertilizer of sorts. When you go down 25 feet and there's no more oxygen, the bacteria are no longer able to do their job. And so that causes an accumulation of ammonia to occur in the lower parts of the lake. And so what we measured ammonia at the top and the bottom of the lake throughout the summer, and that's this graph here. These dots, these blue dot or green dots on the bottom, this is the ammonia at the surface. No ammonia. It's very excellent. But throughout the summer, we see that ammonia at the bottom begins to accumulate at the depths of Lake Quinsigamond. These levels are not good for fish. Again, this is at the very bottom of the lake, so it's hard to know at what point this is becoming detrimental to the fish that are living probably in the middle portion of the lake or higher, but it is occurring. We see a similar pattern happening in the deeper portion with phosphorus. Phosphorus is not toxic directly to fish. However, it is a challenge when we see the the water column become uniform in temperature again, that allows mixing to occur, and we will have all this phosphorus that's accumulating in the bottom of the lake will be brought up to the surface of the lake, made available to things like cyanobacteria and algae that feed on that. And so Lake Quinsigamond is susceptible to late season cyanobacteria blooms. So these are blooms that are occurring in November, December, outside of the swimming season, but that's when you would see these nutrients being brought to the surface when the lake mixes again. So not necessarily a danger to swimmers, but and not that we've even documented any in the Lakes and Ponds program, but we do have the potential for that to occur. And again, this is a process that, based on the information we have so far, we can't necessarily say that it has to do with human inputs into the lake. I'm going to talk a little bit now about invasive aquatic plants, although not too much because this is something that you're all very familiar with already. There are 6 invasive aquatic plants in Lake Quinsigamond that were identified by the Lake Quinsigamond Commission's hiring of Solitude and ESS group. And you did your first treatment this past year, and it was very successful. I think there were some challenges in getting as much of the lake covered as you wanted to. However, in the 2017 survey that was completed on the aquatic plants, there were 310 acres between Lake Quinsigamond and Flint Pond that had beds of these invasive aquatic plants, and you were able to treat 158 of those. And you had significant reductions in the dense aquatic vegetation, especially the fanwort and the milfoils, which are persistent, challenging invasives to get to. So that's good news. I'm going to talk briefly about the Asian clam. This is something that has been brought to the attention of the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association as well. That's taken upon themselves to begin tracking where people have found these shells. So this map is from them. The Asian clam is an invasive exotic species that has the potential of outcompeting native mollusks and also creating like very jagged bottom, pretty much taking over every available surface in a lake. And so there, although there have been several sightings of the shells, we have yet to find a live specimen. And so we're going to keep on looking for that, because in doing so we'd be able to start a process moving forward to continue to manage them. We want to continue to document and look for those clams. So I guess the biggest threat to recreational, to our ability to recreate on Lake Quinsigamond is Enterococcus bacteria. So these are those fecal bacteria indicators that I mentioned earlier. So the Department of Conservation and Recreation tested 21 times at each of the 2 state beaches this past summer, Lake Park and Regatta Point. And this chart, again, you can't really see, it's a little blurry, but you can see the colors. The red are the dates that we were closed. So at Regatta Point, there were 16 exceedances of that threshold that I mentioned, where you have to close the beach, and that resulted in 3 closures at the beach, but they were not small closures. One of them lasted 63 days. So this is 70% of the season. Lake Park had 13 exceedances of that threshold, and was closed over one 55-day closure. And so there was a lot of the parks were closed more days than they were open. And so this is actually a significant increase in closures over 2017, when Regatta Point was closed for 14 days in total, and Lake Park was closed for 18 days in total. So the cause of these closures is unknown. We know that the more common test, and the one that we use in the city of Worcester to test for fecal bacteria indicators, is E. coli. But both are acceptable to the state. Regardless, both bacteria, E. coli and Enterococcus, do not live for very long outside of a warm-blooded animal. And so we have some E. coli results that the city of Worcester collects at the major tributaries going into Lake Quinsigamond. But we weren't able to find any real correlation between high instances of E. coli in those tributaries and these exceedances, at least not in places that are close enough where you could expect the bacteria to actually survive to get to the park. So this is something that's a huge priority, and I know that the Commission and the Watershed Association are already taking steps to begin to investigate further with the causes of these exceedances. So we, after we talk about all the monitoring results, we talk about what the state of the lake is, and we say that the recreational uses and ecology of Lake Quinsigamond are threatened. The three things that we say could possibly threaten the recreational value are those bacteria exceedances, invasive species, and nutrients. So those are things that we're focusing on as we move forward as priorities for management. So what we're going to do in 2019, we're going to continue monitoring how we're doing, how we are now. We might do a few more of those lake profiles to get a better idea of how the lake thermal and oxygen dynamics are happening. We're going to add some E. coli samples to the middle of the lake just to see what the extent of these bacteria exceedances are. Are they just at the beach, or are there bacteria exceedances in the middle of the lake as well? We are going to, if we're not able to get DCR, to do a DNA test of the bacteria at the beaches. We want to do a DNA test to see what the source of those bacteria are. Is it human source? Is it geese? Is it caterpillars? Where are these bacteria coming from? We're going to, we have some other priorities for management of some of these other challenges that we see going on at the lake. So we are working with the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association and the Commission to create a volunteer bacteria monitoring program. And I'll let Mike, you're going to talk a little more about that in a little bit. Some exciting things happening there just to begin to better understand bacteria in the lake. We are also going to be doing some stormwater improvements on Lake Ave North at the Coal Mine Brook Browning Beach area. So we identified, our sewer department identified this location as a potential spot for biofiltration rain gardens. And so this whole road sometimes overflows this catch basin and causes a lot of erosion down in Browning Beach. We would like to install an improved rain garden or a rain garden with increased capacity using a special media and an underdrain that will more effectively filter runoff from this area. We're also going to install a biofiltration unit in a catch basin on this side of the road. And so this is going to start to address some of the nutrient inputs into the lake. It's a very highly used area. It's the head of the trailhead for the east-west trail. And we're hoping to work with the Lake Association to put in some educational signage about what these rain gardens do and the importance of stormwater management. And that's pretty much the state of the lake for Lake Quinsigamond. I just want to say real quick that we had our training for our cyanobacteria citizen science group yesterday. And I did talk to the citizen scientists that you have here from Lake Quinsigamond, and they are going to continue to participate in the program, monitoring for cyanobacteria and helping contribute to this nationwide study that we have going on different, just the health of our lakes throughout Worcester and beyond. And so that's like a really exciting opportunity, and I'm really glad to have Lake Quinsigamond on board, since it's such an important recreational asset for the city and the region. And so that's pretty much the presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Oops, sorry.
For the E. coli, so you're obviously monitoring what those two beaches are, and obviously that's a pretty serious number, the number of days that were closed last year.
Right.
How is it getting notified to the public, besides just signs around the beach, hey, the beach is closed? Are there other,
Right.
is there like an email that goes out to people that have houses on the lake, hey, don't, I mean, obviously on the beach, you're sticking your head in, you're swimming, which is
Well,
more serious than just.
because, yeah, we don't really, send a lake-wide message out, because we don't know if there's a concentration of E. coli that would cause a closure like that anywhere else. I mean,
Right.
they test the beach because there's people swimming there, and so we don't know if so I don't want to alarm anyone by saying, don't go out swimming in front of your house, because I'm thinking it's probably not an issue anywhere else around the lake except for the beaches right there.
Well, I mean, if it's there,
Until we find out what's causing it, we don't really know what
Right.
the heck's going on.
What's I'm saying is it's probably better to be safer to say, hey, look, maybe you shouldn't go out water skiing.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
kayaking one thing because you're not swimming in it, but
Yeah, or swimming, yeah, so, I mean, here's the challenging part to that, like, we'll have an event, and a swimming event, we'll literally close the lake, and we'll say, okay, you can't swim in the lake for the next day or two. And the reality of that is that if something happens at the Lake Avenue pumping station, it really doesn't go much further. I don't even think it gets past Kings Point most of the time, because it's so deep out in front of that it just kind of gets in there and it doesn't really travel south. So it's not like, I'm gonna see anything floating by my house a couple days later. But we close the lake down anyway. And I'm gonna say 9 times out of 10, because the slalom course is right in front of my house, that those guys are out there skiing. And knowingly, they know that the water, they know the lake's closed, they know all that stuff is in, but they still go out there. So people, we'll tell them, but they won't adhere to it, and because they wanna do what they wanna do. So that's kind of the double-edged sword, and, it's gonna be impossible to police that, to go around and say, you can't be swimming in the water, and, what are we gonna do?
I'm thinking more from a liability perspective. It's like,
Right.
look, I didn't even know, there's no signs up at the boat ramp, or there's no, how would I know?
So these results
Yeah.
are very site-specific.
Right.
Okay.
Like you're not really able to know anything beyond, like, probably even just like a 50-foot radius.
Okay.
So it's very hard to be able to say that at the boat ramp on the other side of the lake that there's going to be a problem. Even by the middle of the lake, some days I was taking E. coli samples and there were no hits at all.
Okay.
So they're very, and that's the thing about these bacteria, they survive maybe 8 hours or so outside of a warm-blooded animal.
Question, does it follow kind of like rain events or, like runoff issues coming down from the hills and sort of flushing stuff into the lake?
We did have a very rainy summer, correct? And so there's definitely evidence that rain can exacerbate these challenges. We have not done, the results were they went out twice a week and they were closed for the whole summer. So it's hard to say if it was linked to any weather event.
People were
Had it
swimming
rained
there.
all August?
Yeah,
Bob, beyond the signs, there's people swimming there.
yeah.
Is that true, Casey?
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
There's people swimming at the beach during the
Yeah,
closure.
all summer.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wasn't sure of, they explained to me something about a geomean being used so that they average the test results, so the water itself could be clear and clean, but so the average of the days had to be clear?
That's correct, and so, there's 2 numbers that they use, and, basically, if you have a 1-day hit that's very, very high, they'll make you close it, and if you come back again and your next one is very low, then you could reopen. But if you have consistently very high numbers, they won't let you open immediately as soon as they go down, because it could be a false low. So they want to make sure that your geometric mean for the last 5 events is below a threshold. And so unfortunately, there were very few instances this summer where we even got close to the geometric being. There were 1 or 2 days where we got close to it, but yeah. So yeah, and we're talking with DCR, where we're seeing what we can do.
This isn't the kind of thing that could be associated with, say, failing septic systems, is it? Or is,
It can be, but we don't have that many near that area.
So this
Not
could be-
close enough to make you think that it would be a septic system issue.
so this could be kind of like a human overuse situation.
There are many different things. It could be a goose situation.
A goose situation.
Yeah,
Could have been the caterpillars.
it could.
Those darn caterpillars, they ate my tree.
Yeah, and guess what happened after they ate all that stuff?
They pooped it?
Yeah, it all ended up on the ground.
So yeah, there are a lot of possibilities, and that's one of the things that we've been really excited to work with the commission and the Watershed Association to really start figuring out what the cause of this is. We haven't seen anything like this in any of the other lakes and ponds in Worcester. So.
What's
Thank you
special?
very much, Jackie.
Jackie, thanks. Any other questions?
I have one comment. I've been on this commission about 14 years, and in the last 2 years since Jackie's come on board for Blue Space in Worcester, I know more about this lake and understand more about the management of this lake than I ever have. And I also believe that our lake is actually getting considerably better because of your input. So I want to thank you on behalf of the commission for everything you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to alert you to a program that everyone in Shrewsbury and Grafton is able to participate in that happens through DPW. We have a rain barrel program. So we order rain barrels in bulk and sell them at price. You can order a rain barrel from this website and pick it up in Worcester on June 13th. And I believe they're $60. They're really nice, they're very high quality, they come in different colors. And this is a way that you can contribute to reducing stormwater impact in your community, and also have rainwater for your garden and not have to use tap water. So I have information on that. I'm gonna leave it up here for anyone who wants to consider buying a rain barrel. It's a great water quality investment.
Okay.
Consumer Watershed Association?
Thanks, Jackie, I can read that. So,
Jackie, are they going to actually be constructing some rain gardens?
That biofiltration unit will be constructed this year.
They're going to do that? Okay.
Yep.
perfect. All right,
Is that gonna be maintained by Mr. DPW?
By the city of Worcester, yeah.
See, it's like a freebie for the commission.
yeah, okay. An update from the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association. Got some time to go yet.
I'm getting
Oh,
cold.
we can call, okay.
Got my short sleeves on today.
Hi, Mike Liberty with the Lakewood Sig Watershed. Just a couple of things. The watershed participated in a couple of cleanups, one at Oak Island and also at Homine Brook, as well as the east-west trail. They pulled a lot of trash out of there. We had a member also come from that Lake Ave north side, and he has been pulling trash out of there constantly for years. But it's good to see that not only these one-time events occur, that we have residents that go out and actually make it a habit to
Right, new
keep
face.
keep the shores clean, which is
Yep.
really, really helpful. You know, another note too, that the trash you see, that we were told to us that, that they found some trash that was actually buried in the dirt just from over time that wasn't picked up, so.
Right.
Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there, so it's very important to grab it. The next thing was, I did hear some chatter through an email from the Upper Blackstone that the city of Worcester is participating to open up Columbus Park, the east-west trail, that make it continuous all the way down through, down to Coal Mine Brook to Lake Ave. It's dependent upon a grant, and right now it's at a chatter point right now, but they do have a meeting coming up for residents to go and, develop their input. It was just a sideline from the Blackstone I received via email. The next things that we did, we have hired our first person for the watershed to start with the program that we didn't receive the grant on, but through funding through you. We took a meeting last week, 2 weeks ago at our last meeting, and the group decided to put money forward to hire this intern, keep them going through at least through October 15th. And it's a start, and the things that we had applied for in the grant are gonna be the things that we're gonna be concentrating on. Again, the program started, the co-op program, the quality assurance project plan, which is extensive amount of time, and then also get some testing in as well. His first step will be to attend the co-op development program that the DEP is putting on, first part of May, I think it's May 2nd or so. And then from there, I'll be working with the watershed and the city of Worcester to help, develop a program so that we can start testing and see where this bacteria, the intent is to test more than just the bacteria, all sorts of, inflows from, whether it be a storm drain or whether it be from a brook or stream that comes in. But the concern is to start somewhere, and be hopefully with DCR, his help, we could work with them as well. They have put an application in, or at least a preliminary application in for a project assessment with DCR, where the DCR has a 2-to-1 matching grant program to help further do more testing alongside DCR. It's a different, distinct program, but the watershed's moving forward to try and get more programming, testing in place and see where it rolls out. Pretty much, just a note about that dock that was mentioned earlier. I did happen to see it Friday. I thought it was gone too. I thought it would go south, but it ended up north. Went that way, then it came back just past the island. I actually called Shrewsbury PD as a conscience reliever, because there's nothing they could do, the boats weren't in, it was just starting to get warm. But I just caution people, because this time of year, this is what happens, things get, from the winter, get dislodged, and they become, floating in the middle, and you don't expect it, especially this time of year. There's not many people out there, but when you do get out there, it's an abrupt surprise at night, when you can't see something. So just be careful. The next meeting for us is May 15th, which is held every third Wednesday of the month at the MCL Club at 7 o'clock. And everyone's invited to participate and come on board. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good, thank you. One thing I want to comment on before you leave, and that this effort with the testing is it's the first true collaboration that we've had between the commission and the Watershed Association and Worcester's Lakes and Ponds program. And it's exciting, because this is how we should be working together and getting things accomplished. And we all have financial stake in the game, and it's going to be something that we move forward. We've talked about testing and our need to do that, and Jacqueline's report will basically solidifies that there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about how Lake Quinsigamond, and Roger just mentioned that too, that we don't know what's going on in the lake, and we need to know that in order to keep a productive management plan going. That's the one thing. The second thing, also from a collaboration standpoint too, is that Worcester's Lakes and Ponds is going to do a couple of things for us. But one of the things they're going to do is that we talked about this at the last meeting, is to produce the reports that we need for to satisfy our permit requirements. So that's a great thing. It's going to save us some, save the commission, pocket money, since it's pocket money, money out of our pocket, I guess. It's very helpful. So we definitely appreciate that, and we appreciate all the work that that the watershed is doing. So they're really stepping up here, and, we're going to, get our lake back. Make our lake great again. So,
Just one
Can we
last
get
thing.
little red hats that say that?
Just one last thing, in regards to the cyanobacteria testing, we will be participating, but I know Jacqueline has mentioned in the past that we want to expand communities around us.
Yes.
It's not just Lake Quinsigamond.
Yep.
So Dean Park, any other areas, that need testing in town, that would be a good spot that, volunteers can, I guess, would contact you, Angela, or
Yes.
with Jacqueline.
Yeah.
And get that going as well, because you think about it as a watershed, it's not just the pond in your backyard, it all flows, and we're all connected.
You're right. I mean, the next, this is the next big thing we're gonna do with, or at least collaboration is, we're building a volunteer program that will help us do some of this work and do the testing and train people and make an awareness out there that the watershed is more than just, the visible lake that you see, and it's all around us, and it's all kind of connected. The other thing is probably our next stop on the May 6th meeting will be to reach out to the Blackstone folks as well, because we're literally a big contributor of the Blackstone River from Lake Quinsigamond, so, in not terms of money, but in terms of water volume. So we're gonna get those guys in there. They have a great effort going on. They have a volunteer program. They have people working for them, so it'll be a great model to follow, I think. All right, anything else?
That's it, thank you.
Perfect.
Did you say we have some sort of meeting on the 6th?
No, this is unless you wanna come.
What is that?
It's the Blackstone, we're talking about the building Columbus Park. The mayor will be there.
Oh,
Not
okay,
the mayor,
yeah.
the city manager.
The trail sim?
Yeah,
The continuation, but that's May 6th.
May 6th,
I
correct?
won't be
Yeah, I
attending.
have an email at church, I think I did forward it to you.
Yes, yeah,
So
I can make it.
That's, I'm not gonna be attending, so it doesn't matter. I won't be here May 6th. That's why I
Where
was.
you go?
I'm gonna be recreating.
All right, not on the lake.
I'll be down in Florida.
All right, fine. Florida should be.
Sarasota, they got the rowing.
Okay, so it's the next, sorry.
Well, a couple things before we make a motion to
Competition.
adjourn, Mr. Chair, is if you haven't, sent your money for your dock sticker, we need those monies to, help maintain the lake. I got my stickers in, Mr. Chair, I'd recommend everybody put them on this plates or get them. And number two, we never talked about any aspect of any weed treatment this year, Mr. Chair, season, so maybe we can bring that up next month. Because some people will be having questions as to how we're gonna treat the weeds this year. And I'm not, let this be an issue for discussion maybe at the next meeting or something like that. Otherwise, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
We should maybe set the date for the next meeting first.
Okay, so, what are we looking at for the next,
May 29th.
May 29th? That's not Memorial Day weekend, right? The weekend after.
The Monday is
It's
the
after.
22nd.
Yeah, perfect, all right.
That's acceptable to me. I'll go for that. Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
May 29th, it's good for, you gonna be here?
I'll try to be.
All right, okay.
Before you leave.
Fine, so we have a motion to adjourn.
And a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.